Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Nigel here again. Part 7 now on Monty's Humber. It's been a while since my last one, I'm sorry. I've got a lot of other projects on the go, and if you're a fan of my channel and you watch me regularly, you'll know what I mean. So just to recap where we are with this one, if you haven't seen any of the parts, go back. I've put a playlist together, so you should be able to find the other 6 parts easily. And I've gone right from the beginning, and I'm trying to aim this at the beginner. So, you know, maybe someone who got their first ever model, or somebody who's fairly new to the hobby, and that's where I'm trying to aim this. But also I've got some hints and tips in there, and you know, if you're an older, more experienced modeler, maybe you just enjoy having this on in the background while you're putting some plastic together, listening to me rabbiting on. But anyway, these videos are all user friendly. There's no swearing, there's no there's nothing that would offend anyone, and there's nothing that anybody of any age shouldn't see or hear. So if your parents listening to this and you wonder if your kids are safe to watch it, they can watch all of them. There's nothing unsafe in any of them at all. So please like, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. If you have, thank you very much. You're very valued, and the number is rising very, very fast. So anyway, that's enough of my waffling. Let's get on with where we are. So the underneath's all done. As you can see, it's all painted and looking lovely. This has basically been sprayed with the AK Real Colours paint, and then the detail has been brush painted with the Revell paint mixed with water. I haven't used Humber basically because, one, I like to weather my models with oil paints, and the oil paints will attack the Humber because them in themselves are like an enamel oil paint. And the other reason is the smell. So you're better off using acrylic paints. Humber do a range of acrylic paints. I don't have any. I have hundreds and hundreds of tins of paint from all different manufacturers, and I tend to use my Humber for detail painting and weathering. So I'm going to stick with acrylics in this one. You don't have to. So we've got that together. We've also got the seats together, and if you remember, we had a gap back here we had to fill, which is only to be expected. This model is older than probably most of the people viewing this. It's 46 years old now, the molds for this kit. So if you think about how many hundreds of thousands of parts have come out of this mold tool, you're gonna see some wear. But when you actually look at it, when you look at the detail in there, you know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this kit at all. You know, for what it costs compared to modern kits of today, and then when you compare that to modern kits of today, there's nothing wrong with it. It just shows you can take an old model, a little bit of care and assembly, putting it together properly. I mean, the wheels look gorgeous. Bit of plastic dust on there. The wheels look absolutely gorgeous. The tyre treads look great, and yeah, all very, very nice. So next thing I've got to do is the interior. Now I've assembled the front seats, and I've noticed there's some sharp edges on here that need to be sanded off. So I've got a flory sanding sponge here. Lots of people do different sponges. You can even get them from your local supermarket, your nail sponges. But do be warned, if you buy nail sponges, they don't tend to last as long as the dedicated modelling ones. So I'm just going to gently rub across the corners on this seat just to take the sharp edges off. This is obviously where the mould seam is, and as I said just now, with a mould tool that's so old, you expect to see, you know, these sort of edges and stuff. And Airfix being Airfix, their plastic is very soft. It makes it easy to work with, and also I like the fact that it's this very light matte grey colour, so it shows up, you know, when you have got seam lines and stuff like this to deal with, it shows it up. Oops, it shows it up beautifully. Unlike some of the modern sort of shiny, darker grey plastics, it's difficult to see what you're working with sometimes. And also, it's like if you compare this, I'm also building that HK Models 1/32 scale Lancaster on my channel, and you'll see in there the plastic is very, very hard. In fact, one session of modelling and I got to change the blade in my knife because it just blunts the knife straight away. It's that hard. but it's not brittle, which is good. So anyway, that's that done. Just take some of that wrinkled effect detailing off. If you've seen the other ones, the other videos, you'll see that I've commented about the wrinkling on the seats is maybe a little overdone. But like I say, this is old technology, guys. You got to think, when this tool was made, not every house had a colour TV, you know, and I can tell you, because I can remember back that far, when this kit was made, your TV, you had like 3 channels or maybe 4 channels. I can't remember what year channel 4 came out. You had 3 or 4 channels, and basically the TV finished at 10:30 at night. There was none of this having TV all through the night and everything. I think it went from sort of 8 in the morning till 10:30 at night. I'm sure there's some people even older than me on this channel that'll add in the comments. Yeah, it's times have changed, and when you think this tool is that old, you know, it's amazing that it still produces anything. So there we go. So that's the seats cleaned up. So I'm looking in the instructions now, and we've got to assemble the seats, which we've already done, and we've got to add the gear stick, and I'm assuming this is the brake lever, the handbrake lever. Now, I could add those right away now, but I'm not going to until I'm ready to put the body on. The only reason is, if I put them on now, and I haven't put the seats in, then if I won't be able to stand this that way up for a start, so that saves the bottom getting all scratched. But also, they'll be easy to knock off or break. So I'm going to leave those off for now. And what's a really good tip, if you are leaving parts off, get yourself a red pen and just mark them on the instructions, so you can see that basically what you've got, you need to go back to and make sure you don't forget them. I mean, parts as obvious as that you probably wouldn't forget anyway, but if you decided to say leave the pedals off, you may not spot them. So until the very end, and then you might not be able to actually get them in there. So let's leave those off for now. I'm also not going to fix the seats to the floor because I want to paint the floor first, and I also want to paint the seats. Now, in the instructions here it says 26 and 30 are the colours for the seats. If we go to the back of the instructions, it's telling us 26 isn't there and 30 is matte dark green. Well, I don't think these seats would have been matte dark green. If anything, the rear seat may have been like a glossy leather, but this doesn't depict leather. And 26 is like a khaki colour. So I'm going to paint the seats like a khaki brown, and the frames under here would have been green, the same colour as the body. So I'm going to paint them that colour. Now I'm assuming the floor would have had a rubber carpet on it, or some sort of matting. So I think what I might do is paint the centre of the transmission tunnel green, and then so it's depicted like the actual colour of the body. And then I think I'll paint where the areas where the floor would have been, I think I'll paint those in a matte black. And I'll show you a little tip you can do with the Revell paint, because Revell paint is very, very thick. And you can actually use it on the brush and actually leave the brush strokes behind, and you will see a pattern on the like almost like a ribbed rubber mat on the floor. So let's get on and get that done. Okay, so we've got all our green paint done. We've got the green inside here. I've painted the back of the seat green, and I've painted across the front of the seat green there, because I think that would have been the metal part of the seat, if you like. And the undersides of the front seats are also green now, those frames. So where do we go now? We need to wait for this to dry before we can put the black on. Oh, if you're wondering why I've sprayed this area here will be shown next to the seat, and this area here in the boot, I just sprayed that because I had some paint left over in the gun. And as you can see, I like to spray mine. You can brush paint, it makes no odds. Some people get as good a finish with a brush as they can with an airbrush, so it makes no odds. If you're starting out, you don't have an airbrush, don't worry, just brush paint everything, it'll be absolutely fine. Now what we can do now is just sit here tapping our fingers and doing nothing, waiting for the paint to dry, or we can go and watch a film or go and do something, or we can get on with our model. Now we don't need this to do this. We need both of this done before we can carry on with this, but this is an independent assembly, so we can get on and assemble this body now. What it's telling us to do in here is paint all the inside of this first, paint these separately, paint these little handles separately. I tend to, there are two schools of thought, basically. Here are the body sides, so we've got those out. Let's clear all this out of the way, and then we've got our whole modelling board back. So we've got our two sides here. We've got these four leather satchel things, and it's telling us to paint those green as well. Now I would have thought they would have been like a browny leathery colour. One thing to remember with modelling, there are people out there that you will face as you get more into the hobby that will tell you do things wrong. If you want to build a Vietnam helicopter and paint it pink with white spots, then you carry on. It's your model. You can paint it how you want to. And in my situation, this is telling me to paint everything green. I don't want to paint everything green because it'll look like a big green mess. Not a mess, it'll just be a big green blob. I want to paint everything different colours. So I'm going to do these like a sort of leathery colour. I'll do the seats like a khaki colour. The floor mats are going to be black. And it'll just bring a lot of interest to the model and make it look a lot more interesting to look at rather than just green. If you look at a model tank which is just painted green, it looks great. It's got lots and lots of features, sharp edges, armour, guns and shovels and all sorts all over it. This will just look like a green blob inside, so I want it to look different colours. And the handles here are telling you number 11, which is silver. Now, let's find these handles. There they are, I think. So we're looking for parts 67, 68, 62 and 63. So we've got 62, 63, 67, 68. And we can see that all these handles here look the same. So what I'm going to do, what you could do is paint these actually here on the sprue with a brush. And then when you cut them off and glue them on, you'll have two problems. One is you'll need to remove the paint from where you need to glue them, or you could use like a Tamiya extra thin like I suggested before, and that will attack the paint enough. But the problem is with this, if you paint these first and this first, when you glue them on, the silver paint from here will run on to the green. The other thing you could do is use super glue. Problem is with that, as soon as you tap them they'll fall off because super glue is extremely brittle. And you'll also have to touch them up anyway. Where you've got the sprue connection point here, when you cut them off there and there, you'll have grey plastic, so you have to touch them up with a brush anyway. So what I tend to do, I will assemble all of this, put it all together and glue the halves together, then paint it all green, and then pick out the details, the brown and the silver afterwards. And I'll show you how I do that. So let's get on and get these sides together. So what I'll do, I'll put this side together on camera, and then I'll switch off and go and do this one afterwards. So we've got this side here. This is number 61. And first of all, we're going to look at our parts. I'm going to get this sprue off. And as you remember, I mentioned before, I've got an old pair of cutters here for getting these great big thick sprues off. And these little ones here are for doing the fine bits. The reason I do it this way, these cost about £5. These cost about £30. So these are bigger, heavier, and more suitable for removing big pieces of sprue like that. And then I'm going to go down a bit closer, but what I don't want to do is go right up to the plastic part with these, because what will happen, it will pull a chunk of the plastic out with them. So I'm just progressively working my way down like this. There we go. And now I can take my knife and just trim some of it away. Now I don't need to do a perfect job here, and I want to make sure I don't undercut it. The reason I don't need to do a perfect job is because these are two halves going together that are going to make up one, and I'll have to sand down the joint anyway. Now in the middle here there might be a joint on the bond, I don't know, I'll have to check, but if there is a joint there then I'll be scribing that and I'll show you how I do it. It's just a means of scratching back into the plastic. If you're an absolute beginner, don't worry about it. If you're not an absolute beginner and you want to learn, then I'll show you how it's done. The other thing is I've already gone round, unfortunately, and sanded. Because this is such an old mold tool, as I said, it's 46 years old. these edges here, like the edges of the door and the edge of this vent and the edges of the bonnet, they tend to sort of, as the mould wears out, the edges get softer and it tends to sort of raise up. So what I do, I get a fairly smooth sanding stick like this one here, and I just gently polish the surface to take the edges off. Yeah, and unfortunately I've done both sides off camera, or I've done it on camera and I don't remember doing it. But you just basically polish that up like that and just remove the edges, and then with progressively finer sanding sponges you can take the scratches out that you may have put in there and get it back to shiny plastic again. Here you can, this is a really fine, very fine blue polishing stick. This will just take out any tiny little scratches that I may have put in there. Basically, it just makes the whole model look a bit better if you do that. If you take those edges off, and you'll find with all kits, all older kits, you'll have it. In fact, even some of the newer kits, you might find you need to do this. It's just where the there's a slight imperfection in the mold tool, and you know, it's only to be expected. You can see this polishing sponge here will remove those marks that are in there, and then I can go to this side, and when it starts to squeak, then I know it's done its job, and you can see how shiny that is coming up. It's got quite a shine to it now, and I'll do the same on this door just to show you. And what I do is I shouldn't be doing, I should be using a spatula, but I just wet it on my tongue first, just to, and you can see it polishes the plastic back up to a shine again. And these are available for Flory models. He does a starter set, which is basically a mixture of all his different sanding sticks in one pack, and it's about £10, and they're very good. Okay, so that's that side now cleaned up, and as I say, I'm not going to worry about cleaning up this sprue nib, because I'm going to be gluing these together like so, and I'll have a join, and I may need to put a line in the bonnet, but that part there, which is called the scuttle panel here, where that sprue's sticking out from, that'll definitely need to be sanded down and filled, or whatever's required to get it smooth. So let me get on and do this now. So I've got that part there. I want 59 and 60. So I'm going to use my little black cutters for this. It's got 59 and 60. So there's 59. And there's 60. Cutting those off like that. And then I need 63 and 62. As I've shown you before, what Airfix used to do, every single part had its own individual number. More modern kits, these would all be numbered, say number 7. They would all be one number, so you could just cut 4 of these off and use them. But I'm going to do it properly as per the instructions, just for you guys. So I've got those 2 off there. Okay, so I don't need the sprues anymore, because I've got my 5 parts that I need here. Alright, so I'm going to clean up. I'm going to remove that sprue nib from there. Remove that little pad there. And these little pads are good. What it is in mold tools, you get a thing called an ejector pin, and it leaves a mark, like you can see here, here and here. And that's really good, because what Airfix have done is, rather than put an ejector pin in the middle of that satchel and you'd have to fill it, they've put a pad on there that helps the part get ejected from the mold tool. So, you know, even today there are kits that cost 50 and 60 pounds that have these ejector pin marks put in places where you need to sand them down. So here, 46 years ago, Airfix had the thought to put these ejector pin marks in places where they wouldn't be seen. And these days, you know, like I say, it's shocking when you get kits that you need to clean these out of. So there we go. So that's those sprue nibs sanded off now. Now for these little tiny parts, I'm going to use my tweezers. And I'm just going to hold that there in my tweezers and just gently remove the sprue nib. And the same on this right side. Just like that. And then with this one do the same in the tweezers like that. And there we go, just like that. As soon as I got this in the tweezers already, now I won't actually fit it now because I need to do some cleanup on here. Now these ejector pin marks here are proud, so what I can do here is either scrape them off with a knife, like so, or I can sand them off with a little sanding stick, like so. And even if you're an absolute beginner, if you intend to do more than one model, I would get some of these because they are absolutely invaluable and you will get a far better result if you use these than if you don't. You know, we all know that tools are a very important of any job, very important part of any job day to day. So yeah, you can, as I say, you can buy the wider tools. You can buy these kind of harder nail files from Sainsbury's and Tesco's, and I tend to use these and I cut them down. If I needed to get in there with this, I could cut that down and then use it like that. You see, you don't need to spend all the money. You can do it cheaper, but if you're going to build a few models, get yourself a set of these sticks from UMP, Ultimate Modelling Products, or you can get them from Flory Models, and yeah, go for it that way. So I need to glue these on now, and you can see that we've got a narrow one and a wide one. So obviously the wide one's for the front and the narrow one's for the rear. So the driver gets a bigger satchel. He's got more stuff in his satchel as well by the look of it. So I can use any of my cements. I'm going to choose to use my Tamiya Extra Thin. I could use Humber Liquid Poly. I could use many different glues. I'm just going to glue that on there. So that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is to put the glue on the back of here in the hole, like so, and just brush that on like that, and then drop that in place. Now you see that one doesn't want to stick down. Something's preventing it from going down. Now I should have test fitted it first and then I would see what it was. So what I'm going to do is put some more glue on there, and it's the fact there's no glue getting onto the pin that's causing the problem. So I can do that, and now it's gone down. And there we go. Now the other thing, as I said before about this glue, it's the beauty of it. When this model's built like this, you're not going to see underneath them because you're going to be looking down and through the top. You're never going to see the bottom of these. So what you could do is just get some of this glue and just touch it on there, and there you go. Now it's up to you now. If you decide you're going to do the painting on the sprue method, I would stick these on first anyway, because if you're going to follow the instructions, they're the same colour. So now you could brush paint all this at once rather than having to worry about you know, masking or whatever and doing it afterwards. So what I'm going to do now, I'm not going to worry about doing the sprue method. I'm going to glue these handles on. So we've got holes here in the doors, and what this is showing me is it goes in that hole there and that hole there. Well, those holes go right the way through, so the exterior handles also glue into the same holes. So I want to be careful not to put too much glue in there and block them up, or have the glue running around the outside. And we can see here, when we look on the instructions, this handle points backwards, that handle points forwards. In the old-fashioned days, car doors used to open like that. This would open that way, and that one would open that way, like a normal door, but the front door opened backwards. They were called suicide doors. I don't know why they had that name. I'm sure someone will tell me in the comments, but they were called suicide doors. So let's just put that in the tweezers, place that on there in the hole, Whoops. Now here's one of the problems you find with older kits. The hole is too big for the part. If you can see there, I'm putting the part in and the part almost falls through. So what I'm going to do is just put a little blob of this extra thin cement in there, and that will hold it in place. And then once it starts to go, there we go, and you can see what I mean. Now I've pushed that through and it's come right to the outside, so I'll have nothing to put the other handle in, so I need to push that out a bit just to leave a bit of a mark, a bit of a hole for the outer handle to go into. Okay, in fact it's pushed it right out, so what we should do really is shorten the pin slightly. But again, this is just one of those things with these older kits. It's a little problem you'll come across. So I'm just going to shorten the pin on this one. In fact, the easiest way to do it is to put it in the tweezers, like so. Hold it nice and tight, and just with the sanding stick shorten that pin. There we go. So we'll place that one in the hole like so. As you can see, it's not even in a straight, but it doesn't need to be. Just going to touch the Tamiya extra thin into there. And then move that handle around. As you can see, because I shortened it, we've got plenty of hole left for the outer handle to go in. So what I'm going to do now, that glue's gone off a bit, I'm going to take this one out, stick it in the tweezers and sand it down a bit, just to take some of the length off that pin. And I don't know if you can see that there, but basically the glue, because there's glue on there, it's gone a little bit fluffy and hairy. Don't worry about that. You can just, once you dab it with some more glue, all that disappears. Now I can put that in there like so, position it correctly, and again, now that I've shortened that pin, we've got the hole on the outside, so we've got plenty of location for our exterior handles to go on, because at the end of the day we want to make sure they've got a good location, because they'll easily get knocked off. So there we go, that's them done. So that's that side done. I'll go off camera now and put this side together, and then I'll come back. I just thought I'd come back quickly and show you. With these handles with the long pins on them, the easiest way to do them is to sand them down while they're actually still on the sprue. So you can see like this and like that, I can remove most of the pin while it's on the sprue. So there you go guys. What I'll do, rather than coming off camera now, I'll speed this up so you can watch what I'm doing. They're done, all glued together, satchels in, and now what I've got to do is put the two sides together. And I'm just checking I've got those holes deep enough. Yes, I have, for the handles to go in on the outside. So we've got some pins and holes to line up on here, and then we can get this together. This is going to be a little bit fiddly. Now what you might choose to do here is go on and paint it like this and then assemble it, because it might be easier to paint the satchels and everything while it's still in two pieces. I'm going to go on and put it together because I don't think I'll have a problem getting that done. So I'm going to put this together like this. Now, if you're using Humber liquid poly or sorry, if you're using Humber tube glue or any other tube glue, then what you need to do now is put some glue on these surfaces and then put it together. Because I'm using liquid glue, so if you're using Humber liquid poly or any other liquid glue, what you can do now is just hold them together and make sure you keep your fingers away from the seams. And I'm going to get some tape ready because I use this Tamiya masking tape, which you can get in your local model shop or on eBay or whatever. And it's very good stuff for stuff like this because it's so thin. You can use your cheap common garden masking tape like this you can get in supermarkets and stuff. Two issues with this: it doesn't stretch very well, it's not very sticky, it leaves residue on your parts. And the other thing what you don't want to do is, especially if you've got something that's a bit springy and wants to pull apart, you don't want to come back to your model after half an hour and find it's sprung apart because the tape didn't hold it, and then your glue's set and it's all in the wrong place. So what I'm going to do now, this is one of the biggest tips I can give a beginner, is about this taping parts together. Now, some people would be tempted, if this was an aeroplane fuselage, they'd put a rubber band around it now and then they'd start putting the glue on. The problem with doing that is the glue will run underneath the rubber band or the tape or whatever you've got, and it will actually make a mark in the plastic wherever you put it. I've also noticed we've got a sink mark there, so we'll have to deal with. So what you do is you put the glue on like I'm going to do now. Now, there's two ways of doing this. Because I can get from the back, I'm going to go in from the back. But because I should go in from the back, should I say. But for you guys, I'm going to show you how I do this. Now, they'll tell you with liquid poly, even tells you in the Tamiya instructions or whatever, to hold the parts together, put the glue on, it'll run down. What I like to do is just, if you can, just hold them apart and watch what happens. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but the glue will run down the joint. If you hold them together tightly, you can't see it go down the joint. And with a seam like this, you want to make sure there's plenty in there. And you should be able to see, once you push it together, you see there's no glue at the back. So what I can do now is turn it over and I can put plenty of glue in from the inside. And I've just noticed here something that's going to help us. The reason I'm shaking that bottle every time I put the brush in is because the glue level is quite low. So one of the faults with that glue is the bottle is a lot taller than the brush, especially when the brush is just sat on the top. You can pull the bristles out slightly, but I tend to just keep one bottle topped up rather than do that. So I'll top that one up in a minute. Now I want to make sure these parts are aligned. And the problem I've got here, they don't want to fully align. They're trying to spring back all the time. What I'm doing is just running my fingernail across there. And that's another subject. My fingernails are disgusting, I know, I'm sorry. I am currently using some stuff from Boots to stop me biting them, and they are growing. Believe it or not, they are actually growing. So I'm pushing these together and they don't want to. I've got a step across, so that's okay, that's fine, that's it. So as long as the front is level, then that's fine. So just putting plenty of cement on, giving it a squeeze. Need to make sure that bit there is level. I'm not worried at all about the back at the moment. I really want to make sure I get plenty of glue in this joint, because the last thing you want is for this to split or crack after the model's finished. And that's one of the issues if you build your model with a super glue. That's one of the biggest risks. If you knock it, drop it, pick it up a bit roughly or tap it on something, you could find that it will fall apart, because super glue is very brittle, whereas the actual polystyrene cements, all of them, the way they work, they actually melt the plastic and it welds it together. And that's why I'm putting glue on, because the bigger the melted area of plastic, the bigger the weld. Now I've got a problem here. I can't get those to line up, and the reason is that I think is that pin. So I'm going to take this apart, I'm going to cut this pin off, and I'm going to cut this pin off and then reassemble it, and then I'll be able to get it lined up perfectly as I want it. Because what you'll find in a lot of model kits, those pins, they help you put it together, but sometimes they're more of a hindrance than a help, because the main thing here is getting that top edge of that bonnet flush. Otherwise you're giving yourself the job of, this is the same with an aircraft fuselage, you don't want to be giving yourself the job of loads of sanding afterwards, and you want it to be flush. And there we go. So now when I run my finger across there, I feel an equal step both ways. And I can look on that back edge there, and I can see if I've got that flush or not. So if you're building this model, if you're building this Humber, cut those pins off. As I say, this is no dig at this model or Airfix or anything. You'll find a lot of the time, even with the brand new latest kits, those pins, I'm going to use this Tamiya extra thin quick setting, which is much more aggressive than the ordinary extra thin, but be warned, it does absolutely stink. So if I were you, I would probably, if you're a beginner, I would get the Humber liquid poly for your Airfix models. It's probably the best way to go. Oh, I got some on my finger. That's one of the risks with these bottles. You pick them up, and if you get a drip on the side, it will get onto your finger. And luckily this is a part that isn't on show, but you can see now everybody makes mistakes, so that's what happens there. You can see that mark on there. That's what happens if you get glue on your finger, so be careful. I've been modelling for 49 years and even I still do that. So but it's one of the problems with bottled cement. That's what happens. And now we can see we've got the plastic oozing out, so now we know it's working. There we go. Now the other thing to do here, just going to tape that up. Hold that seam together. The other thing I do here is just get the chassis, because this has basically got to fit the chassis after it's all done. And you can see here that it's too narrow at the back. Squeeze that a bit and then it will fit. And you want it to fit onto this chassis, so you can put it on there and let the glue dry. Now you know it's going to be okay. Now we're going to have to be doing some trimming and cleaning up to get a good joint here, and I'll show you how I do that. I think what I'll do for now, if I can get a couple of these clothes pegs on here, pull that down. I'm not gluing this on at the moment, I'm just literally putting it on here so that it dries in the right shape. So you can see the couple of clothes pegs, that gap will close up, look. And then the front will go down, it just went then. Oh, the front has a couple of holes on it as well, a couple of pegs and holes, so it goes on like that. I'm not sure if I can get a clothes peg on there. Oh yeah, I can. So that's that held in place like that. So we can make sure that the body now is clamped and it's drying in the right shape. Now I can't put a peg on there because it's spreading the front. Maybe I could put a rubber band around it. Grab an elastic band. There we go. That'll hold it down and it's not pulling the front apart. What we've got to be careful of is putting a peg on there is doing, it's sort of pushing it like that, so it's pushing the front apart. So there we go. Now this part here is behind a radiator grill, so if a little bit of cement goes under the tape, I'm not bothered about it. So in this area I can afford to just put a bit of extra glue on there now. But that problem I'm having there gluing, sometimes you'll get that, particularly early Tacom kits were very difficult to glue together because all the liquid polish you could think of wouldn't stick it. Certain plastics won't stick with that glue. For example, if you use cotton buds, the plastic on cotton buds, on the ones I've got anyway, it doesn't affect it. It's like a nylon, it doesn't affect it at all. So there we go. That's that together. I'll leave that now to set for a couple of hours, and then I'll be able to take it off and then leave it for a little while just to set and everything. And I think what I might do is glue some plastic behind there. And what I'll do is I'll use sprue so I can show you how it's done, just to add some strength, because I'm not convinced that seam is going to be very strong because that doesn't seem to have glued together very well. So that's that. We'll just check all our handles and everything are still in the right place. Yeah, that one's been moved. That handle there needs to just go down a touch, like so. That one's been moved as well. Obviously I've touched them with my hands while I'm putting it all together. Just push them out a bit. And there we go. And I'm just going to put another tiny drop of glue on them, because sometimes with these liquid glues, when you move the parts, you end up with this sort of sponge of molten plastic between the part and between the two parts, and it doesn't sort of go off very well. So that's just my experience. So that's what I do. So what I'm going to do is show you now how to strengthen this up. Looking forward in the instructions, we can see here that there's a bulkhead going in, and we've also got a dashboard. So before I do any of this painting green, then I need to look at actually gluing them in, because it's all got to be painted green anyway. So what I'm going to do is actually fit the dashboard and fit this bulkhead. When I've done that, I won't be able to get this clear part 70 in, which is actually showing you the instrument faces, the dashboard dials. But don't worry about that, we'll leave that out. And using a product called Humber or Airfix, I'll show you how you can make those glasses there without having to use the clear part. And what we'll do is we'll just use the Humber Airfix, put it in the holes, let that go off, it'll dry clear, and then we can put some black paint down behind and it'll look like the instrument faces. So what we need to do, I've got the bulkhead here, so I'm going to glue that in first. Now it needs to, you see the ejector pin marks on the back there, obviously they go forward, so I'm going to glue this in like that. And the reason I want to do this now before I paint anything is, once again, I can fit it, I've got my rubber band there at the ready and my pegs, I can fit it back into the bod onto the chassis and make sure that everything's going to fit. Because the last thing you want to do is get all this glued in and then find out it doesn't fit the chassis anymore. So that's all on like that now. Now shut that glue up. Here's the dashboard. So the dashboard's got a little glove compartment in it as well, which is a nice touch. So I'm going to unclip this from the sprues like this, and then just clip those nubs off. And you can see that unfortunately we've got a ejector pin right in the middle. Now I'm not sure if that's an ejector pin or if it's supposed to be there, so I'll give it a very light scrape with the knife just to take the edge off it. Just to remove that edge. Yeah, I think it is an ejector pin because it's got a it's not even round, it's not circular. I thought it may be another gauge, but it's not. A lot of these old British vehicles only had 2 gauges. They had a speedo, and then the other one would have had like the fuel gauge and the temperature gauge in it, and any other gauges it needed at the time. So unfortunately I'm going to have to stop there because that's going to need some filler in it. In fact, what I'll do, I won't stop there. I'll put some filler in it afterwards when it's in there, and clean it up when it's in the car, because I've got a feeling I'll be able to get to it easily once it's in there. No, I won't. I need to fill that now. So I'll stop there and I'll come back in a second. Right, I've filled that little hole in now, that little ejector pin mark. And what I use is super glue. I just put some super glue in the top of a Pringles tub, and then apply it with a cocktail stick. And then what you do is when the glue's dried, you can just literally peel it off like that and reuse the Pringles lid. So yeah, super glue will not stick to a Pringles lid, which is good. And all I did was I just gently built it up in there, kept sort of scraping it with a knife, you know, basically. And then if you want to check that it's flat, you can take a magic marker and just go over the top like this, over the mark that the hole that you filled. And then I'm going to use the corner of the sanding stick so I don't remove all the surround detail on the dials. And I can just, with the corner of a sanding stick, just rub over it gently and make sure that I don't leave any low patches behind. So I can see on there that I'm basically removing the super glue, or the pen should I say, trying to concentrate and talk at the same time. I'm a bloke, I can only do one thing at once. One thing at a time should I say. So yeah, there we go, and that's that removed, and I've got no hint of any black marker there on that. One tip I will give you as well, make sure you don't leave any black marker on there, because when you paint it, it will come through the paint. So if you wrote a big N on here and then painted over it green, it would come through. Paint it again, it would come through. So yeah, it's worth remembering. So what I'm going to do is just get a bit of thinners, bit of acrylic thinners on a cotton bud. Find a cotton bud. There we go, running very low on them. And then just the cotton bud dampened with acrylic thinners. I can just remove the black pen from there, and then I know I'm not going to have any problems later on. So that's that one done. Now this ejector pin here inside the glove compartment, we can see in there, that's a raised one, which is the best type. So I can just take my knife, wherever it is, where is my knife, there it is, and just go in through the top of the glove compartment and just scrape it away like so. So that's that one out of the way. And also there's a bit of flash on the top of the glove compartment. I'm assuming the top is supposed to be hollow, and there's a bit of flash on there, so I'm just cutting that away. Flash is to be expected on a tool of this age. As I've said before, it's 46 years old. 1973 this kit came out, and mold tools wear out, and this one has stood the test of time very, very well in comparison. And I haven't got a sanding stick narrow enough to get in there. Oh, I have. I can get in with the corner of this one and just sand the back of that way until that ejector pin mark completely disappears. Some people call these injector pin marks. They're not, they're ejector pin marks. They're actually metal rods that push the sprue out of the tool. The injection is, can't really see it, well the injection on this one probably would have been through these here, but yeah, you can see these are ejector tabs here. There's ejectors there, and they actually push their rods that come out of the tool and push the sprue out of the mold tool. So this dashboard's got to be glued in now, and we can see that it goes up in front of those ribs in there, so I can put that in place. And there's one more thing I want to do before I do this. I want to sand this flange here nice and smooth and make sure it's level on the bottom, because it will be extremely difficult to do once the dashboard is in. So I'm going to take my larger sanding stick and just sand away until it's all level and nice and straight and flat and everything. And looking at underneath, it's got a step in it. So I'm going to get my modelling knife and on an angle, not keeping it straight, on an angle, just lightly rub across. And what that should do is take that step out. There's a step on the top, I'm not worried about that, it's the step underneath I'm worried about. So I just want to take that away so there's no general line there that you can see that's going to stick out like a sore thumb. I'm very tempted to do this with the roof up anyway. I think it looks better with the roof up. But then that's just because the roof's going up, that's no excuse to skimp on the detail. Okay, so there we go. So that's that. And I can't feel any step underneath. So let's get this dashboard glued in. Yeah, it's going to need some work, because you can see there that when the dashboard goes in, the top of the dashboard is not at the same level as the you can see there's a raise in there. So I don't know, we'll have a look at that afterwards. But I'm going to put that in place against those two ribs and just drop some of my Tamiya extra thin in there. Like so. And that'll be enough to hold that in place. And then just using my knife without bits of plastic all over it, I'm going to just nudge it in so that it's up into the corners properly, like that. And there we can see the dashboard is in, and I may need to do something with that underneath, I may not, we'll see what it looks like when it's painted. So I've actually put that in backwards because there's a hole there. Now what I'm going to do, because of those two horrible ejector pin marks, they've put them on the front face and I don't want to be able to see them. So when you build your model, make sure the hole, you can see there's a hole in there, is facing this way for the pedals to go into. Now I've done it the wrong way round because of these horrible ejector pin marks here. Now I'm not actually sure if it's going to fit I better take it out actually, because it probably won't fit the floor at the bottom because it's got an angle on it. So dashboard's like that. I'll turn this around. I'm going to have to remove these ejector pin marks. And I know if you're anything like me, sometimes I watch these build videos and you may have been shouting for the last 20 minutes saying, oh my god, you've put that panel in backwards, you need to sort that out. So I'm just going to gently remove these ejector pin marks, and again you can use a pen and just go over the ejector pin mark like that and then just sand until all the pen disappears. In circular motion so as not to get any straight lines in it. Obviously it's not that important because it's under the dashboard and kind of hidden away, but you'll still be able to see the bottom of them. there we can see once the pen's all gone, then we know that the ejector pin mark is gone, as long as our sanding stick's nice and flat. And just to finish off, I'll get my nice flat one here and just gently rub over. And there we go. Then I'm going to glue this in the right way around this time. There we go. So that angle there will now be correct on the floor as well. Okay, so that's that in. And as you can see, I can't get the clear part in there now, but what I can do is put some clear fix in there, paint behind it black, and then we're laughing, we're away. In fact, what I could do is just paint behind, no, I can't paint it black because then you'll be able to see through to the black. What we need to do is put the clear fix in there, and then once it's dry, paint the back of the clear fix black, and then it will be black on the back and you won't be able to see through. You'll see what I mean when we come to it if you're a bit confused. I also need to add the pedals now and the steering column. So to find those, there's the pedals. So we'll cut those off. There's the steering column on this tiny little sprue here. And we've got a great big ejector pin mark on the side of that. I don't think it's going to be seen. Just going to tidy up here. Bit of a mess going on. And this isn't that important, it's the bottom of the steering column, but and then they put the sprue connection point on the top of the steering column, which is a shame. Some manufacturers don't think when they put the sprue connection points on where they are, and unfortunately this one here, it could have been on the bottom and out of sight, but they've put it right on the top, so you need to be particularly careful in removing that and making sure you don't lose the round shape for the steering wheel to go onto. Now if you're a beginner and this is all a bit much, don't worry, you can take some of this with a pinch of salt, take it in your stride, however you want to say it. But I like to make sure that my model is right, because I have the tools and I have the experience to do that. If you don't have the tools and all the experience, then just do it the best you can, because the best you can is as good as you're going to get. And if you try hard at something, you can't do any better than that. So that steering column actually fits in there and stays in without any glue, but I'm just going to put some glue on it just to hold it in place. So that's in place like that. And now I'm going to put the pedals in. Whoops, I dropped them. And there we go, Carpet Monster nil, Nigel 1. So I'll just trim that off of there. And then clean the sprue point off. And then I'm just going to put that on that hole, like so. I can see the way this is supposed to go. It's not supposed to sit flat. It's supposed to sit up like that. So I'm going to use my knife to nudge it into place. And there we go. That's on like that. There you go. Job done. So We also need to put this piece in, which is the frame for the central window. Now I've also noticed I've got some ejector pin marks in there that I didn't see before, so you should just clean them up. Yeah, there's only the one there, so I just want to get rid of that as well as I can. Just cut it away with the knife and flick it away. Go down the other side. And then cut that. Like so. I'll just trim this. Like that, and then put this frame in between there. And I'm guessing it just sits vertically like that. And as you can probably see, what I'm doing, I'm gluing as much as I can before I do any painting. Almost like you do on an armour model. I guess in a way this is an armour model. If you paint stuff before you glue it together, you always run the risk of getting glue marks, and then you've got to do cleaning up and everything, and the glue doesn't stick so well. So it's best to glue as much as you can beforehand and then paint it all after. And it also gets you better skills with detail painting as well. Now I've pulled the body apart. See what happens when I pull the body apart. That comes out. So let's put that back in there like that. In fact, I think I need to get this body on here, back onto the chassis, and let all the glue go off. So that can go on there like that. And then the back needs to squeeze down. Let's get my clothes pegs on there again. Pull that down. Pull this side down. And pull that up so it's vertical. Check it's in the holes. Yep, it's in the holes. It's not going anywhere. It's vertical. And one last thing I'm going to do, where that ejector pin was, I'm going to just brush some cement on that, because quite often when you brush cement over where you've been sanding or whatever, it takes away the sanding marks. And there you go. Now, while the glue's still soft on the body, I've managed to fit all the parts inside, fit that front bulkhead, fit the pedals. I'm just going to pull them back a touch. Fit the pedals, fit this centre support, and fit the dashboard. Get rid of that ejector pin mark that was in the middle of the dashboard there. Get rid of the one in the glove compartment there. Fit the steering column, and there we go. So that's all in place now, held on the chassis. So everything's going to dry with everything in the right place now. So I'm happy with that. I hope you're happy too. In the next part, we'll get all the inside painted green, and then do the detail painting on the leather satchels, the dashboard, and all of that. Okay, so thanks for watching. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. Give me a like if you've liked what you've seen, and if there's any more help or advice you want, any more tips or anything, then just drop them down in the comments below. So thanks for watching. I'll see you all soon with part 8.